tell the public what's going on. It's instead an opportunity for the select board to listen to what you have to say and, and ask questions about the ARPA issue and fund release itself. And I see there are members of the committee who will be able to answer questions that are, that we will not be able to answer. So it's not a dialogue between the public and the select board. It's you telling us, what's going on with you and what information you want us to have so that we can make decisions, because legislatively, we have to make the decisions. So no other business can be taken on during this. This hearing is for you folks. Just to keep organized, please direct all questions to me, the chair, and I will, and somebody who knows the answer immediately can raise their hand, because I certainly don't know the answers to a lot of this. So, it's not a way that we want to dialogue with each other. We want to keep it in moving ahead in an organized way. Now, the select board will have an opportunity to say how we think things should proceed at the end of the hearing. You may get 3 different versions because we aren't allowed to talk to each other outside of a meeting, and then we will be able to react to what we're hearing. That said, what questions do you have? Do you have some input?
Before we get going too far, I think it might be worth noting that because it is a public hearing, that people that would like to make public comment probably should come up and use the microphone so that people that are remote can hear, what people have to say and all of that. So if people want to, they can raise their hand, be recognized, and certainly come up and use the microphone.
Yeah, we've got 2 microphones there, and don't forget to press it to green like I just forgot to do. And you don't have to ask questions, you can just make statements.
Yes, thank you. That was my point.
Exactly.
Sandy Wilmot from Poker Hill Road. I saw what the ARPA committee has done for this tremendous list of 53 projects. During their presentation, they had really solid arguments for why they made decisions the way they made them. I personally had submitted 2 that did not get funded, but that's okay because there were a lot of good projects there, and I would support the select board in looking at that list and weighing what the committee, the time they put into it and the discernment they've done, and agree with what they've put together there. So that's my comment, not specific to any one proposal, but that the committee has done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. It's important to make comments like these that can be a part of the public record. So,
excuse me, Dan, would you like to alternate between remote and in person, or how would you like to handle that?
Do we have a lot of remote? Any remote right now? I can't see the remote so easy, so.
So there we have roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, several, at least 8 online, 9. So I guess if anyone wants to speak that's online, they could raise their hand, but I just didn't know how you wanted to handle it, if you wanted to hear from all the in-person or if you want to
I
alternate.
think mixing it up is a good thing. That's what hybrid's about, huh? We've learned. I don't see any hands there, so is there another comment or question? Please, it's important to identify yourself and where you live. for the public record.
Good evening. I'm Dan Mans from up on Pleasant Valley Road. I had the opportunity to speak to the select board several times now about the Harvest Crossing project that I've been involved in the planning for. I was pleased to see that Harvest Crossing made the list of recommended projects to be funded. But as important as that, I wanted to echo Sandy's comments about the process that was used. I think the select board very wisely appointed a committee of folks who have various backgrounds, knowledges, and interests in town. These folks worked really hard to whittle down and consider the relative merits of the various projects. At the end of the day, I was discussing this thing with my wife. We looked at the list of projects. She's a lot smarter than I am. And she said, every one of these is great. They're all worth doing. They'll be of great value to the community. And I think it just sort of is indicative of the good work that the committee did. And I too would encourage the select board to take the committee's recommendations and move as promptly as possible. I think some of these projects have fairly short timelines. I think the town wants to get this money spent. I think a lot of progress can be made in a fairly quick time frame. So thanks for doing it the way you did it. I think it's a model for what many towns could have and should have done.
Thank you, Dan. You can let me know if anybody on the...
I will, Dan. And just as a reminder, if anyone would like to speak that's online, just use your hand raise feature or just click on your video and raise your hand, please.
Any other?
Good evening. I'm Nick Tanner, live on 6 Krug Road, and I think I'm going to echo a lot of what was already said, which is that I recommend or I support all the committees, the ARPA committee's recommendations. I think they had a very thorough, transparent process for soliciting ideas, and then had a fair process for how they whittled down to the selection that they did recommend. So just want to I guess put on the record that I support their recommendations. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Dan Lee. I live on Range Road. I certainly support the recommendations put forth by the ARPA committee. I think it was a neat grassroots approach that the select board took, and then the ARPA committee made their own of soliciting ideas from the townspeople. So many of the projects are initiatives that have long-term interest from the town that I think the town has worked towards. I think those are great. The digitizing the records is something that the town has long sought to do. Getting a generator at the town garage has been, I understand, on the docket since before I moved to town 5 years ago. I think it would be great if it weren't a generator, though. I think it would be good if it were a battery bank of sorts that could be tapped into if the power was out. So I wanted to make that comment, and the other comment I would like to make is that stormwater projects were excluded by the committee, and I'm not quite sure why that was. There's a statewide effort has been made to improve water quality across towns and watersheds. And I think it would be a worthwhile way to spend some ARPA money. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, my name is Dave Williamson over on Sugar Hill Road. The question that I have is kind of directed to the advisory committee with the understanding that I thought, as well as everybody else, that they were all good recommendations from the projects that were submitted for the ARPA funding. This is more for my understanding, and what my question is, did the committee have some type of written criteria or a rating rubric to evaluate or rank the projects as they came in? And then secondly, was there any difference in percentages included with that criteria? Were these all funded at 100% of requests, or were some of the projects funded at a lesser amount? So if I could have one of the people speak to that, that would be helpful just in our understanding of it. But thanks for everybody's effort involved with this. I think they've done a marvelous job.
Thank you, Dave. Is there anyone who can answer that for the group?
Hi, I'm Bill Frank. I missed the first meeting of the ARPA committee, and so I am here as chair. The first question I think had to do with, was there any evaluation criteria for each proposal that came in? And the answer to that is maybe. We work very hard to come up with this criteria and to put some kind of a point value on it. And it seemed like every time that the next proposal came in, it didn't meet those things. And we kept going around and doing it. And at one meeting I said, I think that this might be more of a subjective decision than the other. So what we did is we carefully evaluated, and by evaluation I mean going through and looking at each proposal. Many times we had questions about the proposal, and at that time we appointed one person from the committee to go back and speak with the person who wrote the proposal and get the answers to that. After that, after we have the answers for all the proposals, we went on to the next one. And, sometimes we came back to them and sometimes we didn't. It depended how many new ones we had at each meeting. And at the end, we carefully asked each person to go through and look. Well, no, the next thing we did is look at proposals that didn't meet the criteria for ARPA. That was one thing. Another criteria was those that had no dollar value associated with it. And those we talked to the proposal. The reason they didn't have any dollar values, they didn't know the dollar value. We didn't know the dollar value. So that sort of put those proposals at a little, well, if we agree to it, how much are we going to do? And at the end, we all rated the proposals that we thought best met many criteria of what's needed in the town, the number of people, the number of proposals that did that, the the value to the town, all those different type of subjective things. And then each member sort of rated those proposals on a scale of 1 to 4. 1 meaning that they really would like this one to be recommended, 4 being at the other end. Not that it was a 0, but the fact that it wasn't their top criteria. At that time, it was very clear that there were some proposals that got all 4s. I mean, there were some that we all just felt that they weren't the right ones. And so we eliminated those from the list, didn't throw them away, we just eliminated and then continued on. And eventually we got down to, I don't know, 20 some proposals, I think it was. And we went through then, our rating, averaged it, sorted them in that order. And then we started at the top and they said, do we want to fund this? How much do we want to fund it for? The other thing was that there were multiple proposals for basically the same thing. For example, the sidewalk. We had 8 or 10 proposals dealing with some kind of a sidewalk, a recreation path, safety concerns about walking on the roads, all those things. And finally, we would take that and we just grouped those together. And then it was really hard we couldn't add up all the dollar amounts for each of them. And plus, there's a couple of those that just had no dollar amounts. But another example was the fire department had 3 different proposals. We looked at each of those. They're all important. We felt strongly about them, so we just put those together, and you notice that there's 1 item for fire department, which includes those 3. So that's how it ended up. We ended when we ran out of money. And so we got up to the 655,000, and then the next meeting we went through and said, well, do we want to make any changes? Do we want to change the dollar amount we give to them? Do we want to do others?
Do we want to remind folks too, Bill, that on the website under boards and commissions, ARPA, if you go to phase 1 proposals and final report, a lot of your information is there. It's a good place to go to see their work.
So phase 1 is all 53 proposals.
It wasn't
he's gonna have to come up.
It was a very good report last week, and I don't know if the video, the public record is up yet, but if people have not seen that, you can go right to where it started here last week.
Hi, my name is Michael Oman. I was the Energy Committee representative on the ARPA committee, so I had some familiarity with this. And I just wanted to add a couple of things to Bill's very excellent discussion. One is actually when we put out the request for proposals, basically, that included a very substantial list of criteria that dealt with applicability to the town plan, whether or not it would incur subsequent expenses. There were a number of criteria associated with that, about a half a dozen that people were asked to check off. And in fact, they fed into what we were talking about. And I think that they also added to a certain amount of self-selection so that, you know, when people put in proposals, they put in proposals that they thought would begin to respond to those. Not everyone responded to everyone, obviously, and some things were important enough to sort of supersede one or two. But we did have criteria associated with that. Of course, the criteria of the ARPA program itself. We also had an extensive survey that had been done, I believe, by the Planning Commission that we referred back to the town plan and what we were doing. All of these things were addressed as part of this. And I think there was also a question about alterations to funding, and that became fairly important when we got into multi-town projects, you know, things that we share with Jericho. We wound up basically suggesting when they were going to be funded, we suggested funding them at 40% and then get passed on to Jericho, which I understand you guys are all working out as to how we're going to be able to follow up on that. So there were, I think that's most of what I would add to that. So there was definitely criteria. They definitely factored into it, and we did try to go beyond then the criteria to look at the value to the community overall. Thank you.
Anton.
Good evening, Anton Kelsey. I live on Pleasant Valley Road. Just two quick comments, I guess. One is I just want to thank the group that did all the work for this. I know there was a lot of proposals, a lot of thought, a lot of meetings, and I also know at all those meetings, those were times where public could come in and give comment. So I appreciate all that work. The second thing is just in terms of process. I think one thing that's important when you put a group together of volunteers and ask them to do a lot of work, that we put a lot of trust and respect in those folks that do that. I think this meeting is also really important to hear comments from the public, but I just want to make sure that we put a high degree of respect in the group that put a lot of time and energy into this. And the one thing I get a little concerned with this meeting, I'm just concerned that if massive changes are made or some curveballs come in, it doesn't show the respect that that group might deserve. And I think the volunteer aspect of that's really important in what they did. And I wouldn't want to do anything that would feel like it was undermining the work that that committee did. Because I do know that a lot of time and energy was put there. So unless there's some really new information or some new idea that somebody has that wasn't considered, I just urge this body to accept the list as proposed by that ARPA committee. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Anton.
Dan, we did get about 6 email comments. So I don't know how you wanted to handle those. Some of them are quite lengthy. Oh, you're muted, Bob. I'm sorry.
I would rather wait to read those or just make them part of the public record. We have people here and we have people online.
Yeah, some of them are lengthy, and if they are a part of the meeting and people are curious what the emails are, you know, I read them as I was going about my day in Burlington, but they're very good. I have to read them more carefully. But
I'll send those to Donna then.
I think we should
reflected.
read those into the public record at the end of, after everybody has had a chance to go and express their comments. That way, if anybody would like to hear what has been sent in writing, you can actually hear that. So I would ask that we actually read them into the record.
Do that after the public comment period.
Exactly. If we give everybody a chance here to speak.
I will accede to that. I think that that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, just so folks can hear.
Steve.
This is right.
I'm Steve Webb, Krug Road, and I just echo what almost every other person has said, is that the process was good. People did a lot of work, and I think we should respect that. And I would have chosen a few different things myself if I'd been a member of that committee, but I trust the judgment of the committee. And what I'd like to request is that the select board accept the recommendation as was presented the other night and approve those projects.
Thank you, Steve.
Again, if anybody online, oh, I do see someone with their hand up. Yes, Luke Hasselbach has his hand up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Luke Hasselbeck. I was a member of the ARPA committee. I live on Poker Hill Road. Can everybody hear me okay? Yep, okay. Just two things I'd like to add. One is the ARPA committee started with a total of $3.5 million worth of funding requests that we were aiming to whittle down to our total number of about 650,000. In that process, I want to be clear that our recommendations are not a recommendation against the projects that we didn't choose. There were many proposals that we received that were valuable and frankly need to be done. But with limited funding, our committee worked really hard to try to capture what we viewed as the most popular public options that were achievable within the confines of the ARPA rules and the time frame that includes. So, this isn't a catch-all. There are many unmet needs that aren't going to be addressed by this. But the process we went through, I feel very accurately reflects the will of most of the town. And I recommend the select board adopts our proposal as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Are we ready to move on to the emails? We could, I would suggest that we rotate in reading them, and you folks can pretend you're watching CNN or something, and that way we can have the desk here, and I'll take the first one. Is that all right with you? Great. This first one came in on Tuesday, April 18th, and it's from Kurt Johnson. Unfortunately, I can't make this special meeting Thursday to represent the HEIC, which is the Highway Infrastructure Committee, on the ARPA funding. That said, given our mission to represent the town on highway and equipment infrastructure, we feel it's important to relay our thoughts on the matter. A bit of background first as to why there isn't any input from the ARPA committee for highway items. The HEIC was working on the initial ground rules for ARPA funds that they could not be used for highway projects. As such, we didn't submit any highway projects for it. On town meeting day, we learned the rules had changed, but by then we had passed the submission date. We probably should have inquired about it, but given the upfront guidelines were a hard no, we didn't consider doing so. So where do we go from here? It is our heartfelt recommendation, considering the above circumstances, that the HEIC have a voice in the matter. If the select board honors this request, we would recommend using half of what is left towards purchase of the excavator and trailer for it. This should just about cover the entire expense and take out 5 years of about $75K per year in capital spending during a period of time when the capital budget is expected to face significant challenges. The excavator is a piece of equipment that should last 20 plus years and provide the town substantial long-term benefits. There are other items we considered, but the excavator was deemed the best choice since it would directly impact most residents. My apologies for not being able to attend the meeting this week to convey the HEIC recommendation, but we'll be busy at that time. I would be happy to answer any question the select board has on this when I'm back in town. So please let me know if there's any other follow-up wanted on this. Sincerely, Kurt. Yes.
This is from Don Tovey, dated Tuesday, April 18th, 2023 at 5:19 p.m. Sent to Brad Holden, Karen McKnight, Dan Steinbauer, myself, Tricia and ADP 45. And copied in Luke Hasselback. It starts, hi everyone. Oops. Hi everyone, you are all gathering, getting this email because I would like you to look at my initial draft of what is to be the town of Underhill's Emerald Ash Borer Preparedness Plan. And Luke, you're included because you were my contact for the ARPA funding proposal. I have most of you assigned to be on the EAB Preparedness Plan group as well. I want Nate to be part of this also, but all interested members of the Conservation Committee. Please look over the document closely as there are big implementations and upcoming expenses that the town will need to incur as the EAB starts killing the ash trees. Taking this on proactively will reduce these expenses rather than waiting until all the trees have died. The beginning is mostly background information on the EAB, such as where it came from, where it is now, and what it does, and how to ID it. The real meat and potatoes as far as the town of Underhill is concerned starts on page 10 with the ash tree inventory process. Please read the next few pages carefully and be prepared for what is coming. This could be very costly. Again, I'm looking for edits and suggestions at this stage, after which we will ask the select board to approve it. This is a working document meant to change with time in the whole EAB situation. I also wanted to get this to you as soon as possible because I read the ARPA committee's report and recommendation last night. Apparently, I did not get the point across with the proposal I submitted to use some of the funds for tree removals. We are looking at several $100,000 spaced out over the next 5 or so years. I don't know where that's going to come from. The ARPA funds would be a way to at least get things started. My thinking is like this. If you know that you have to replace the roof for $20,000 and you only have 10, does it make sense to spend 5 of it on a sidewalk to your front door? Thank you for your consideration, and I look forward to hearing back from you. Don.
The next submission, which is probably the shortest of the whole packet I win, is sent from Wayne Norris, sent to Brad Holden, support for ARPA recommendations. Please consider this email as an indication of my total support for all the proposed projects put forth by the ARPA Advisory Committee. Please pass on a well done to the committee. Wayne Norris, 57 Downs Road.
Patty, you got off easy. You want
I
to take
did,
another
totally.
one?
That was the short one.
Should work out.
Should work out.
They're long, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you have the next one from
Number 4.
Susan?
Oh, do you want me to read it, or?
You want to, or?
I can, either way.
Okay, go ahead.
This is from Susan Thomas, and it was on Wednesday regarding ARPA funds. Hi, Brad. I don't think I'll be able to make the meeting tomorrow evening, but I wanted to send some thoughts about the committee's recommendations. I definitely support the 3 major proposals, and although I know a sidewalk and/or recreation path is badly needed in the center, I would give first priority to rehabbing the town hall meeting room and second to the low-income housing project. The meeting room not only functions poorly, its appearance is also an embarrassment. Rick Hay and I did a lot of research on the space before COVID shut everything down, researching on lighting, sound engineering, heating and cooling, fire safety, the floors, plaster, etc. I hope that any renovations will be consistent with the historic character of the building. I was disappointed to see no mention of the final report of improving the town's website, which received a lot of support in the survey. That shouldn't be a big expense, and it's been badly needed for a long time. I appreciate all the work the committee has put into this, and thanks for the community and thanks for the opportunity to comment. Susan Thomas. And then I did reply to Susan that we are actively engaging in updating our website, and that should be online soon.
All right. So I have one here from the pastor of the United Church, Jen Myhock. Just wanted to voice my support for the work of the ARPA Advisory Committee and their thorough consideration of so many wonderful projects. I'm excited about the possibilities as I read through the list of recommendations. I plan to join tonight's hearing remotely in the home stretch of this pregnancy, but just wanted to be sure my voice of support got heard. Many thanks to you also for all you do for our town. Jen Myhock.
I'll pass on this one if you want to read the next one.
Tag on that. Okay, this is from Bridget Stone Allard, or Bridget Stone, sorry, from Bridget Stone to Brad, ARPA funding. Hi Brad, I'm writing to express my thoughts on the proposal received from the ARPA Advisory Committee. In general, I favor items that benefit the entire Underhill community long-term rather than specific boroughs within Underhill and specific interest groups. Specifically, I most strongly oppose the center sidewalk project and the BRMB funding. These are projects that specifically benefit small segments of the town. I'm curious about how Jericho would equitably share the burden of the Harvest Crossing, Food Shelf, MRP, DRMC, and BRMS pieces. And without clear definition of the shared responsibility, I oppose Underhill unilaterally funding their projects. I am disappointed that given the aging population everywhere, that there was no proposal specific to a local pool, such as Hardack in St. Albans. It is a long distance and a considerable financial burden to travel to Essex or St. Albans for aquatics. As we age, aquatics are universally accessible and low impact in ways that biking is not. Aquatics benefit arthritis. A pool would encourage year-round healthy activity, teach children to swim, and provide movement opportunities for the aging and aged. UCS had a recent playground upgrade as a result of the consolidation of the ID school. The garden is little used in the last 15 years. It was a pet project of families whose children are now graduating college. Current families may have new and yet to emerge interest that do not include the garden. Let it go. I would also be in favor of a proposal to save the former ski bowl as a recreational area for the town similar to Tomasi Meadow. Both pool and ski bowl are aligned with the mission of the ARPA funds' intended use, are of clear benefit to all in Underhill, not a bifurcated use of our neighbors that is complex to negotiate, and both pool and ski bowl benefit aging, current, and future generations. Thank you, and thanks to the committee for their work. Bridget Stone. And also Bridget Stone. Is this a second email?
Yeah, I couldn't quite figure that out, but I just tacked it on there. Maybe it's a second email she was tracking.
Okay, so a second part of Bridget Stone's email. Hi, Brad. I'm writing to express my thoughts on the proposal received from the ARPA Advisory Committee. In general, I favor items that benefit the entire community long-term rather than specific boroughs and interest groups. Specifically, I oppose the center sidewalk project BRMB funding. Sent from my email or from my iPhone.
I guess I didn't get that.
And those are all the written as of 5:45 today. That was the extent of the correspondence.
Okay. Are there any other things that anybody thought of that they want to bring here into this hearing? So how will we proceed? I'll defer to you two. What are your ideas that you might want to say?
I think we've had our public hearing, and I think the next step is to have an agenda item on the next select board meeting to discuss this. We've given an opportunity to hear from the committee, and we've had an opportunity to hear from the public on what their thoughts were. And so now it's time to take that all under advisement and start to work out how we're going to move forward.
And that gives us time to digest what we've heard tonight, to review the report again, and we can come to our next select board meeting with thoughts and just, next steps.
Yeah, that's good. One thing that I could add to that is that I think it's a kind of a two-step process. I think that one step is to approve the report as a whole. That doesn't mean each one is designated, but approve the report as a whole and discharge the committee with great thanks. You did a super job. The second part is we would have a formal resolution for that. I would think that we would want to, be real clear what we're doing. The second part is to take each individual thing, and we would probably bunch them somewhat like the committee. We wouldn't do this in one meeting, and make some decisions. And that would be warned on various meetings as we get to that. Obviously, we're going to try to do the more time-sensitive ones first. But as the legislative body of the town, we have to vote individually on each proposal. It can't be a blanket approval with money things. And as such, we may want to, ask for some advice from somebody in the committee or from the giver to the proposal as we look at it more closely. We don't have to look at it as close, though, because we've had all these brilliant eyeballs and minds looking at it already. But that's kind of my take on it, of what it could be. And by the time we have our next select board meeting, when we have a full house, I know we have some absentees coming up, but we want to jump on this quickly. So that's a thought.
I could just state, Dan, that, Jericho has reached out to me, or John Abbott has reached out to me, and the Jericho Select Board would be happy to meet with you if you wanted to. They did throw out some dates, but if you don't want to talk about that now, that's fine.
Fine, we can work that out. And that would be an important cooperative thing to do. And that may be an initial thing to do with them. Any other final comments? I don't think we have a closing public comment period, but anybody who wants to make on the agenda, but any final comments on the project that we're looking at? I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. This motion carries 3-0. We are adjourned. Thank you for coming, everybody.